This is the SEBA meeting for July 2nd, 2019. We have one item on the agenda, which was the discussion of ARM hardware support. We originally had a demo from Infosys on the ONOS FCAPS abilities, but that got pushed to next week. They needed some time to help polish that. Just so everyone knows, these meetings are public and recorded, and we publish them to YouTube. With that, I think the first item, Larry's taking the lead on that, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. So first, my apologies for the confusion on the agenda item. I failed to get it on the agenda, even though this was discussed a little while back. We were looking for a free day. So in any case, the question broadly is how to best go about supporting alternative architectures, for example, ARM in SEBA. And it is a target architecture that's of interest, but we need to work through how to go about that. So is there anyone from that ARM group that was going to talk about this? We may have
Hello, Ciprian here.
I'm sorry?
It's Ciprian from INEA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm involved mainly through Crano, and we are working together with ARM on the IEC project, so Integrated Edge Cloud. And we've been looking at SEBA quite from the beginning. And I was also CC'd to that email group, to that email thread about ARM support for SEBA. I was expecting Tina to also join. I don't know if she's going to join or not. Haven't really.
Well, we can have a generic discussion. I mean, it shouldn't necessarily matter the particulars. I think the bigger question is how to go about supporting different architectures. In principle, it should be possible. There are architecturally, I don't know of any particular hurdles. Maybe Zach could speak to build system readiness for alternative architectures. In my view, just to sort of frame this, SEBA is an exemplar platform. There is a more general RD that's been defined, of which the SEBA exemplar is an example. That exemplar doesn't attempt to do all possible things. It is an exemplar, so it runs on a particular configuration of hardware that when a release is produced, it's stamped as having passed a certain set of tests on that particular hardware configuration. Certainly, from an Acrano point of view, if Acrano wanted to pick, be downstream from the SEBA exemplar and fold in additional capabilities, such as running on another architecture, that seems perfectly reasonable. I'm not sure what requirements there are beyond that, but maybe you could speak to, what it would take beyond being a downstream project of the current SEBA that, and of course, if there was something in the release that made it impossible to be a downstream that incorporated ARM, that, and you had suggested changes, certainly we would be taking those back. So can you shed more light on what the issues might be?
Okay, so I hope I can cover everything. I don't think I've bumped into all the problems, but what I can tell you for sure is that at the moment we are using special built Docker images. We need Docker images that are built specifically for ARM. So that was kind of the first problem that we bumped into, we can always, that's actually what we did in the end. We just identified the corresponding repositories from which the needed images were built, and we built them natively on an Arch 64 server. and then push those images in Docker Hub. There's two, I think there's two repositories that they go into. One I think is IC Edge, and the other one is Crano INEA. But we would like to unify them. But the
were those changes in the Docker files primarily just the base images that you went off of? Was that the diff?
Yeah, mainly. I mean, I need to go and check through all of them. We are working together with a team from Shanghai, from ARM, on this. So, as a matter of fact, I don't have a list of all the changes that we did, but we started off with a list of Docker images that needed to be ported, and I think that list is still on the Ukraino wiki. If it's any help, I can look for it. So, but kind of the main problem is that there was no R64 images for those.
Right. So, I mean, the state of affairs today is that your work is downstream from SEBA, and you output images to a Crano, from SEBA's point of view, a downstream project. Which seems like the right model. What I was hoping to get out of this is what asks there were of the upstream.
Well, if you have a look at on the email thread that got bigger and bigger, I think the question first was how to get support for ARM, particularly for running SEBA, like out of the box, and that raised and went into the question of how do we make sure that we can build all the resources in a CI/CD fashion, like we did, like you do with everything else. So if you're asking what's the requests from our side towards upstream, that would be it. If you think it's enough to just have everything on a separate Docker Hub repository, the separate forks of the actual Git repositories until everything gets merged, that's already happening. That we already have that, but this model does not help us in the long run because we don't have the necessary infrastructure to build everything and make sure it continues to work on ARM.
So it's the continuous integration testing issue that you see as the real key one here.
As I was saying, this was actually coming from a few other guys, and particularly I think Aaron from AT&T, and maybe even Paul Carver. I mean, these are the guys we work with in Crano. And Aaron Bird, for instance, is the PTL for SEBA, Crano SEBA. So yeah, like you said, the main question here is how can we support ARM in a continuous integration fashion?
Well, so it would be great if the exemplar produced multiple, ran in multiple architectures. That would be an ideal situation. The situation we're in now is we have the resources to produce one. If ARM is of interest, and it sounds like it very well might be, if we could organize a brigade around, those interested in integrating ARM into the integration process, that seems to be a good idea as well.
So there's two parts of it. There's the way you make multi-arch Docker images is you need to build them on each architecture and then integrate them and create a manifest that integrates them so that you can run Docker pull on an image name and it will automatically pull down the right architecture. Is that your understanding as well, Cyprian?
Yeah, I think I lost you there for a minute, but if
So-
you can summarize.
Yeah, so that you build it on all the architectures, then you create a manifest and you include those architecture specific images, and then when you push that to Docker Hub, anyone who pulls it will just, when they pull it, it will detect their platform and pull down the appropriate image.
Yeah, I think that's what you would expect if you think this thing from the user point of view.
So what then is involved is we need to figure out some way to, if we want to do this, is in the upstream EP, we need to have those resources available for doing those builds, and then make the changes that we would need to make to create the manifests and incorporate the two architectures and do the push to Docker Hub.
Is this with the experimental BuildX feature, Zach, where it seems to be able to build for multiple architectures on a single platform? You don't necessarily need to have the ARM platform available to the build. It's like a cross-platform build.
I have not used that before. David, do you have experience with that?
I don't. It's just as I've heard about it, and I thought that's what this was targeted for, is to be able to say, look, I'm going to have one build system. It doesn't matter what architecture my build system is. It can essentially cross-compile for the different architectures.
I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't used that before, so maybe that's worth exploring.
Yeah, I've actually heard someone else mention in the email thread about that, that might be possible to build the images on a regular x86 server. But do mind that that usually means some sort of QEMU user static, and it's going to be quite slow from my previous experience. I mean, at least 2 times as slow, at least. You know, depending on what you're also building, it might be even worse.
Yep.
It's better, in my opinion, to be able to build natively. But then again, the whole problem here is to be able to have multiple arch support, and that involves doing that manifest. I haven't worked with that myself, but we use that inside the Crano, and another colleague of mine did that, something like that, for a Docker image for validating blueprints. So it's working well. It's but we do build the images on ARM, on one of our ARM servers.
Do you have the target testing hardware? I mean, that would be the other thing that we would need.
Well, yeah, that was kind of the second problem and the issue raised in the discussion, and I think there was one possibility to use the hardware that we have in the Crano community lab that is located at University of New Hampshire, and we have currently 6 servers. Those are Gigabyte Thunder X2 with 28 cores, or 2 sockets with 28 cores, or something like that. And we have those specifically for validating SEBA and other use cases in a Crano.
And I think from your email, it said that you're using some of the virtualized OLT hardware using PonSim, but
yeah,
not actual physical OLTs and ONUs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you remember the discussions we had about real hardware, and that when we had that discussion, it wasn't really clear what kind of time frame we would expect for getting real hardware, but maybe something changed in the meantime. I'm talking here about Crano projects in particular. You know, so if you manage to get some real hardware for the SEBA blueprint, we might be able to use it for a Crano. But until then, I mean, for our ARM support. But until then, we will try to use PonSim, and we also used BBSim, but I get a feeling PonSim is better.
So, popping up just to the next step, it sounds to me like we want, or there is potential interest in having a brigade that took on the challenge of integrating the ARM build and test into the CI/CD platform. And I think we've identified some of the challenges. One is having the sufficient hardware, not only to test, but to do if we wanted to directly build on ARM. Coordinated with the broader SEBA group for any changes that needed to go into the build system to support that.
And that will be entirely on your open networking end? Because I mean, we need to figure out a way to solve the hardware issue. Because at some point, I assume you would like to at least run SEBA in a box.
Well, in terms of hardware, I mean, ONF doesn't have hardware. We look to partners to help out with that. So, you mentioned Aaron and some of the folks at AT&T. Maybe that is a place to turn for sufficient hardware. I mean, we don't have the hardware, and I don't know who does.
Yeah,
with help from ARM.
Mm-hmm.
And the other issue is, so including this in the CI/CD process, in any case, it is gonna double the number of builds we need to do. So I'm assuming I guess we'd like to. It'd be useful for the community for somebody to step up and say, hey, we want this, and we want this to be a part of what we work on. I'm getting some feedback. Okay.
Well, that's the meta issue, because we already have a solution today, which is
right.
These folks take it and do a build in the Acrano environment, and output goes to Acrano. So this is entirely about making the ARM release a second variant of what gets released as part of the exemplar platform. And that will take community help on a number of levels.
Yeah, there might be another technical aspect here. In Acrano, at least what we do on ARM, all this SEBA related work for ARM is happening in the IEC project. And this blueprint also defines the specifications for the server, for the platform, including hardware specifications and kind of the base OS specification. And from what I understand so far, we're not doing the same things as you guys do.
Yeah. So
it's kind of a technicality, but maybe worth mentioning.
Yeah, there's a delta there, I think, between I think IEC was using CentOS or some other base operating system below Kubernetes.
Yeah, it's Ubuntu now, but we plan to switch to CentOS because we plan to go with Telcode licenses.
I don't think that would be much of a challenge for running on real hardware. Some of the emulated stuff might be a problem because I think we're doing some very specific things in some of the integration that are specific to Debian style operating systems.
But wait a minute, maybe I'm not following this, but what this means is even if we were to integrate ARM into our CI/CD, what we would produce would still have to be consumed by Acrano and changed in various ways.
No, this is more the low level stuff. So the Kubernetes you lay down, that's all below running Helm and installing the charts and those sorts of things. So,
but I mean, ARM is below Kubernetes,
yeah,
so
that's correct.
It's by it is tagged and blessed as an official SEBA release.
So one of the things that we could talk about is what level of validation we want to give to hardware. So a common thing that gets done is you say that we have one platform that's a class 1 supported platform, and then you might have class 2 or below that have different guarantees of reliability or stability, which is really basically just a way of formalizing the QA commitments that have been made by the platform. I don't think we've done that for SEBA or various other things we've released, but that might be one way to work.
Well, yeah, and I think we might have to do that because, as you pointed out, it is a non-trivial burden to have to validate everything
multiple times.
Multiple times. It's enough of a slog as it is to get something running on the few pods, homogeneous pods that we have.
Is there one of the other things that would be interesting to know is in the rest of the wider SEBA community, is there interest in having this as a capability? Is this something that service providers think they're going to get deployed? I know AT&T is interested in it because it's part of a Crano, but is there are other providers or other even hardware vendors? Are you looking at ARM solutions?
Or another way of asking that, are there other configurations that people would be interested in?
Right. Yeah, or other architectures that people might be interested in as well. Okay, we might just not have the right people on the call to answer that question. So I guess steps forward will be I can arrange and I'll get you involved, Cyprian, with this. I'll arrange to set up a brigade and sort of codify the work that needs to be done and see if we can get some ownership from, I'm assuming AT&T, because they're involved in a Crano about this whole process. Are there any, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, it sounds,
I
sounds
think
good to me.
the ownership is the key word.
Yeah, we need to find somebody who is part of ONF that can be, they can own this. So, all righty.
Just one question about that. If it were to get some kind of resource from ENIA, for instance, or maybe some other partners, but for now, working with ARM is just us. Do you have any idea in terms of membership, this kind of political aspects?
We're always open to people joining ONF, but so we can work that out.
Well, I may have interpreted your question a different way, which is, one of the things we would do is help promote the brigade to attract members to it, if that's what you meant by member.
I was talking if referring to maybe if it would require for maybe ENIA to become a member of ONF, or if it were to have any help from any of us guys, does that mean we need to have a sort of formal collaboration, or can be done like a informal way? Well,
certainly being a member is the preferred method. I think, truthfully, ARM not being a member of ONF doesn't particularly help the situation. It's a matter of, are there consumers for this? We wouldn't do this purely for, to make ARM happy. That's not really, doesn't make sense. But that there is interest within the SEBA community and the ONF community to do this. And then whether you are a member or not, if you're willing to step up and contribute to that, that's great. So, it really comes down to, is there a pull for having this, right, from somewhere?
Yeah, I know. And I was not going to get involved in that discussion. I was hoping to get to have those aspects solved somewhere at the upper levels. And I from the email thread that was exchanged, I got the feeling that there were some discussions offline of that thread, but I'm not really sure. So I was hoping to just discuss about the technical details in this meeting, since it is a technical meeting, as far as I understand.
Yeah, we should focus on the technical, and independent of that, ARM pursuing membership would be great, but I don't think we need to make that the center of attention here.
yeah, I cannot speak on behalf of them, but I get that they were members before. Perhaps it can be renewed. I don't know. We worked together with ARM in another open source project in the Linux Foundation that was OPNAV, and they withdrew from that one. Maybe now there's enough space to join again ONF, but I'm just speculating. I don't want to. I'm not speaking on behalf of ARM.
Yeah, membership I wouldn't characterize as a prereq for doing work that everyone needs, being involved in work that everyone agrees needs to be done. But having them as a member gets them, certainly doesn't hurt. But I think we should focus on the technical aspects of this and kick the rest of it over to the membership folks.
Yeah, just one other thought. Even with the previous projects we worked with ARM, they were usually interested in having ARM as an option, kind of offered, ready to go. So it would be ideal if we could find people interested from the very start in having open cores, SEBA running on ARM, but I think usually it's kind of the other way around. So hopefully, if it can be agreed at upper levels, then that would be enough. But and that's it. I'll just not go to this subject again. If there's any other technical details we should discuss about, maybe we should go back to that.
Okay, I'll post the SEBA mailing list and copy you on that, and copy some of the Acrano folks on the technical aspects. And I guess we'll proceed from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm also I've been looking quite a great deal at your Jenkins and CI process. I had a few questions about what you do for the releases, for the SEBA releases. It looks like you have some sort of actual hardware hooked up there, and I think that's kind of the other one of the last questions I might have. Do you have any sort of real hardware hooked up to any one of your pods, and you do validations on that?
Yeah, we have OLT hardware, and we have partners that have OLT hardware that to help with testing. We have pods that either in some cases pre, and in most cases post merge, do validation periodically to validate that things are working and aren't broken, and that sort of thing. But I can go into that in greater detail if you have specific questions. Either raise me on Slack or in the mailing list to get answers about that.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to bring this up to have it, to just think about it in case we want to do the same on an ARM cluster, because having, if we decide to, at least for starters, to have to use the hardware that we already have at UNH, and not, hopefully you will be able to get some sort of sponsorship for hardware for your own project. That would be preferred, but in case that doesn't happen, I was thinking we should just keep in mind is that in case we do want to have a full support with real hardware, that might be an issue if we stick with the UNH lab, because as I told you, we don't know if and when we're going to get real on hardware.
Right. If we have a certification brigade that is working on certifying different pieces of PON network hardware that I think is pretty close to getting OLT, and then I think they're going to work on ONU hardware. But we can definitely let you know what we're testing on in either the labs at ONF or at various of the partner locations.
Okay, that sounds good. maybe we can talk about the result of this meeting on the Crano SEBA meeting.
Okay.
And by the way, do you know what happened? It was supposed to be yesterday, but I don't think it was on. I don't think it happened.
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend because as for the pre-meeting, we moved into a new office and nothing was working yesterday. So I wasn't able to attend either.
Yeah, I think the meeting expired or something changed. The Zoom meeting room changed. And I have no idea what happened, but hopefully we can also discuss about this during that meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. Are there any other things we need to discuss for this meeting? If not, we'll look forward to the demo next week, and hopefully by then they will have more of the SEBA 2.0 components released. We're right now pursuing having an alpha release, as we're missing some of the BAL related items for doing tech profiles, and there's some reliability issues there. So we're trying to get an alpha release out that is working, and can be used for some testing, but maybe isn't as stable as it could be. Alrighty, I'm going to call a meeting. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, Zach.